I really have nothing against MatPat. He's a good guy, makes entertaining content, But for every good theory he cooks up, there's always another he absolutely butchers.
You can only really be offensive with one arm, one weapon, or one side of your body at a time. Half the time, that part of your body is just going to be rendered useless.
Yeah, the historical community just finished ripping that one apart, and now that he's stepped into politics, well, that's my domain, so...
How bad can I be? The ones there isn't really bad, you will see. How wrong could we possibly be?
Oh god.
The Lorax. Neither the Onceler nor the new villain Aloysius O'Hare are to blame. There are 0 trees, and the one city that we see, Thneedville, is a synthetic consumerist mecca run by a new businessman who's come to power, Aloysius O'Hare, who built his empire on selling bottled air.
And became a zillionaire!
While Mr. O'Hare officially is a businessman, he basically just runs the place.
Everyone round here works for me.
And he has his own secret police that try to stop our main character Ted when he attempts to sneak out of town.
Wait, you just made my argument for me. He literally runs a company town nobody can escape from. Story over, case closed, O'Hare is evil. Aha, but see, MatPat's gotta make his content, so contrarian's got a contrarian.
The business model of O'Hare's Air Company, we're told, is that bottled air is made in a factory which manufactures plastic bottles. Of course, there's an obvious conflict of interest here. The factories that manufacture O'Hare's plastic bottles spew smog, which in turn drives more people to buy bottled air. But if you take a closer look at what's going on, O'Hare might not be the villain that the movie sets him out to be. Because as much as what I've described sounds like a dystopia, if you look at the actual lives led by the people in Thneedville, the movie actually tells us a completely different story.
What? The fact the people of Thneedville live happily doesn't make what O'Hare does okay. That's literally the argument the fossil fuel industry uses. We may be destroying the environment, but our oil improves people's lives.
For starters, the most dystopian part of this might be the idea that people are paying for air. It'd be pretty dang evil if O'Hare monopolized the most vital resource of all and then locked it behind a paywall, forcing people to pay him if they want to live, but that's not what's happening here.
You're literally swerving a mile wide to deliberately miss the point. The point isn't monopolies, it's that he's tricking customers into buying air.
And it's not as if the air outside looks all that polluted. People are dancing and singing in the streets without having any health concerns. They're not coughing, they're not struggling in any sort of way.
It's a dystopian movie. The fact they can somehow breathe freely is for effect, no?
The fresh air that they're buying from O'Hare is no different from the fresh air they'd get if they simply opened up a window. Wow, it's kind of like another resource we have in real life that's available to us that many opt to pay for because it comes in tiny plastic bottles that claim to be fresher.
What? That's your argument? That because we have bottled water today, bottling air is also okay? The point is that bottled water is as bullshit as bottling air would be, and that what we're doing now is evil. God damn.
As Ted gets further away from the city, the more air pollution there seems to be. If anything, Thneedville is the one place that seems to have escaped from this fate. Somehow, by hook or by crook, Aloysius O'Hare managed to create what is, by all accounts, a thriving city. Despite the lack of trees, he found a way to allow people to breathe free air.
Wait, you don't think it's actually free, do you? If this were in any way realistic, the purification of air around Thneedville would have to be subsidized somehow, and for a public good, that falls on taxes to fund. And who runs the town and receives tax money? Yeah, O'Hare does.
O'Hare almost seems like a hero. At the end of the movie, when we look out over the ruined wasteland, it's important to understand that isn't what O'Hare created, it's what he had to overcome for his company and town to be successful. And he did it. The people are happy.
This is literally just corporate apologetics.
The rich are heroes who deserve all their wealth and power because they meet a demand from consumers. Whatever problem we face, the free market will save us all.
The people are happy, sure, but that's because 1, it's a fucking dystopian movie, and 2, because O'Hare is lying to them. Companies create artificial demand where none exists all the time. How do you think diamond rings became a thing? Diamonds are just a useless common rock, And up until the 1930s, that's how they were treated, until the De Beers Group monopolized them and then ran a massive ad campaign which started our eternal diamond ring tradition. Now compare that to Thneedville, where the people have no clue what they're missing because they can't leave town.
In fact, if you actually look at the living conditions of people in Thneedville, it seems not bad at all. For a movie that's supposed to be all about the woes of modernity and the harm brought by capitalistic greed, we don't see anyone in Thneedville that seems to be a real victim of O'Hare's enterprises.
It's a fucking movie. Of course things can look good in a fictional town, but rewind that just a bit, stop. See that? See how the houses all look exactly identical? That's not just one of Illumination's asset-saving schemes. It's a comparison to the real-life Levitt town, the classic neighborhood of single-family houses with white picket fences. The whole point is that everything seems better than it is. It's an artistic exaggeration. In the real world, capitalism intrinsically does lead to rampant inequality.
O'Hare doesn't really seem to be that much of a bad guy here. Sure, he doesn't want to grow the tree at the end of the movie.
And why do you think that is? You literally said it at the beginning of the video.
The factories that manufacture O'Hare's plastic bottles spew smog, which in turn drives more people to buy bottled air.
Wouldn't the trees, clean up some of that smog? And yes, consumers want the air, but the consumers are idiots.
You gotta be kidding me. You really think people are stupid enough to buy this?
Our research shows that if you put something in a plastic bottle, people will buy it.
The vast majority of people tend toward incompetence. I mean, once they figured out what was going on, they began knocking down the walls of the city because they realized how wrong they were, right?
But outside of that, he took a desolate, polluted wasteland and turned it into a consumerist utopia where everyone is happy. Sure, he's rich, but he's rich off of producing a product that people were willing to pay for.
All right, the free market is perfect, and if consumers buy it, it must be worth the price. What's next?
It's hard to defend this guy considering he's definitely the one to blame for all the trees being cut down. At the end of the day, it's old Oncey who's responsible for chopping down the trees, which is bad. So thus, he is the villain. Except his product is something that everyone wants.
That's a complete non sequitur. He cut down the trees, remember? The fact he did it for a fad doesn't justify anything.
The Thneed is the world-changing product that he thought it was. I'm sorry, I just can't fault a hardworking guy with a dream who overcomes adversity to achieve tremendous success as the bad guy in this case.
You guys can see how ridiculous this logic is, right?
He worked really hard and fulfilled his dream, so he's definitely the good guy, right?
The whole point of the movie is that free market forces don't account for externalities, which is how things like the environment become afterthoughts.
His one fault, and this is a biggie, is that he doesn't replace the trees. And that's not evil.
Oh, I'm sure he meant well, but guess what? Everybody means well. That ain't got jack shit to do with the fact he fucked things up for everyone else. He destroyed the forest just to line his pockets. How the fuck is that not evil?
And that's not evil, it's just stupid and bad business. As he too quickly learns, without trees, his business dies.
My fucking god! The forest is chopped down, the wildlife is going extinct, the air is all polluted, and you're worried about Oncey not being able to continue his business? Oh, woe to the billionaire for losing his cash cow. Believe it or not, the free market is supposed to serve human interests, not the other way around. I get it. You have to pump out a theory every week, and one for your game channel and another for your food channel. But you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, man, and it shows.
There's a reason why in real life 80 to 90% of newly planted trees are planted by logging and paper companies.
Oh! So you're happy to explain away O'Hare's faults by saying his fictional town seems really successful, but now you're going to say, aha, but in real life a company would never destroy all the trees. Pick one. The mental gymnastics here are amazing.
How would it be in their best interest to destroy forests with no intention of replacing the trees that are used to make paper? Sustainability of harvestable areas is crucial to the long-term survival of any paper company. Over 4 million trees are planted in the United States every day, with nearly 2 million planted by the paper and wood products industry.
All right, time to put on my big brain science Olympiad ecology gold medalist hat. Do you know what those paper and wood companies would do if they could? They just plant a bunch of trees in neat little rows and then cut them down as soon as it's efficient. But you know what? When you do that, you're not creating a real ecosystem where animals and shit can live. Just because you're replanting trees doesn't mean the forest is just as healthy as when you got there. It still displaces the actual ecosystem. Even if that weren't the case, this is just one example of sustainable business practices. Sure, logging companies need to replace the trees, but what about coal power plants and factories and shit? What free market incentive do they have to make sure all the smog doesn't just get blown away into the air? Nothing! Pollution costs nothing to the businesses. That's why regulations are required to make sure they don't fuck things up for everyone else. You're literally missing the forest for the trees here.
So who is the villain of the Lorax? It's the consumer. It's us. It's easy to point at the big business guys, in this case the Onceler and Aloysius O'Hare, and say, you did this. You're the one at fault for all of this. But they're only doing what we as the consumer are telling them to do. Can we fault him for selling us a product that we're telling him we want?
Yes. Yes, we can. Remember when the British Empire fought an entire war with China just so it could sell opium to its population?
Yeah, there was demand for those things.
But it's fucking opium! Just because the consumers want it doesn't mean it's good or valuable, and by capitalizing on consumer stupidity, this fuck is exploiting them.
And again, with the Onceler, the customers are buying. That is us telling him, we approve of what you're doing, keep providing that service.
For the last time, consumers are morons. They don't know jack shit. Sure, they like needs, but that doesn't mean they approve of destroying the environment.
The people of Thneedville are perfectly happy with their giant cars, and their inflatable trees, and their waste of batteries. They want those things, and you know what they don't want? Trees.
And why do they not want trees? Because O'Hare has manufactured a superstructure which creates a consumerist culture with little appreciation for nature. Sound anything like the real world?
We're the bad guys here, because we are the ones that let their bad business practices slide. We didn't prioritize nature. We didn't care about the trees because we wanted a Thneed no matter the cost. We didn't care about air quality to worry about O'Hare's pollution. For change to happen, it doesn't fall on them, it falls on us.
Based on this absolute brainlet argument, the corporations can do no wrong. Whatever fucked up shit happens, it's always someone else's fault for not keeping them in check.
And if we disapprove of the way someone is doing business or what a company stands for, it's up to the consumer to vote with their dollar. But to both O'Hare and Onceler in the movie, the dollars thus far had been telling them, we approve what you're doing.
That's only if the consumers know what's going on inside the company. Not everybody knows that the rare earth metals used to power the phone you're using as you sit on your toilet was mined up by child slaves in Africa. You don't think Apple would casually let that fact leak into the public, do you? And guess what? Even if everybody wanted to protest, they can't. The system is set up so that you literally can't do anything without O'Hare profiting from it somehow.
Everyone round here works for me.
I'm a socialist. I think capitalism is evil, but I still have to buy shit to survive. You think I, who constantly talks about the stupidity of the masses, like democracy? No, but I still vote, because if I want to make any sort of systemic change, I have to work within the system to change it for the better. That's why laissez-faire capitalism doesn't work. You can't morally impugn people for the faults of the larger culture. Change ultimately has to be made at the systemic level.
It's not about the Onceler, it's not about O'Hare, it's about us. But hey, that's just a theory. A film theory.
No, it's not. Get the fuck away from economics. You have kids in your audience, and they don't know anything. And slow down your release schedule. Your content's really jumping the shark. Goodbye.
I'm and I approve this message.